All right, Thursday night, Krug Show. Dieter's in the house. We got a lot to get to. The schedule is out. Purdy remains unsigned. Do the Niners have a little bit more pressure because the schedule's cake? We'll talk about it right now. Join us. Off and running on the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Claw Daddy Arcades. He's got 3 locations in Southern Cal. He's got a spot in Fresno, one in Modesto, and he's got a brand new location opening here in the Bay Area. Claw Daddy Arcades is bringing family-friendly fun to communities across California. Thanks to Claw Daddy Arcades for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And this show is sponsored by LearnKey. That's right, LearnKey Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less, whether you're interested in IT, cybersecurity, marketing. Could be another high demand field. They offer over 30 different certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. They've been in business for over 37 years. They've helped over 200,000 students while they've been in business, and they place over about 100 graduates a month in well-paying jobs. So check them out. The links are in the description below for all of our sponsors. Thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, we're off and running on a Thursday night. Dieter's in the house, and we're going to talk a little Niners. And the schedule came out yesterday, Dieter, and I think we were all expecting it to be an easy schedule because we kind of had been given indications that the schedule was going to be favorable, and sure enough, it was. But give me your takeaway on the schedule, because it was a favorable schedule. But I do think the one stat today that I think almost has to be thrown out, because it really does tell the story a little bit of what's going on, is the Niners do have the easiest schedule in 2025, but the past 3 teams that entered the season with the quote-unquote easiest schedule all finished with losing records.
Do you recall those teams, Larry, who they were? Because just logically speaking, typically the teams that get the easiest schedules are teams that finished in last place. And there's this funny thing going on in the NFL where there are just some absolute dog shit football teams that finish in last place every year. The Browns, whatever's going on in Jacksonville. Like, there's just some bad football teams. So I don't know if it necessarily applies. I'll say this. We've known the opponents now for more than a minute, right? Like nothing...
Sure. Going way back.
This was just about the order. And last year's order, last May, we're like, oh boy, this is less than ideal for the 49ers, because you have a backloaded schedule. And if they had any injury problems, that was going to be a real issue for them in the second half. They were at a massive rest disadvantage. I think the biggest rest disadvantage. There were just a lot of things stacked against them. I don't see anything of the sort on this schedule. Not only should the opponents be easier, significantly easier, but I don't see any particular problem outside of maybe a preferential bye week a bit earlier or a bit later than they would want, right? Like having the was it week 13, week 14 bye week, like that's okay. You don't love that. You'd like to have it a little earlier, kind of break your season into to 2 halves. Otherwise, like, what's there to complain about? I like to break down the schedule not with last year's win-loss record, because logically everyone's expecting better from the Niners this year. Well, I mean, they had a terrible win-loss record last year. They picked 11th in the draft, so they're helping out other teams in terms of who has the weakest schedule, because the Niners are on it. And it's just not – that's a team that's expected to win 10.5 games in Vegas. And I can see why Vegas has the number where it's at. The hardest team that they're going to play is the Rams at 9.5. Then there's Tampa at 9.5 and Houston at 9.5. And everybody
as far as
else,
when you say 9.5, you're talking about spread, point spread?
No, this would be the win total in Vegas.
I got you. Vegas win total.
So they're not playing any teams that are expected to have more wins than them this season, as it stands currently, which is interesting. They are going to get Cleveland, Tennessee, New York. They're all 5.5 win teams on the book right now. You add in New Orleans at 6.5, and that's a number that could get down to 5.5 probably by the time the season starts, given the Derek Carr news. And we don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but that's a gift, right? Like if New Orleans has anything in the tank, they'd find it later in the year. New coach, all that. They're going to be figuring it out on the fly in September. You
might get Tyler Shugg,
right,
who's been in college for 7 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's more experienced than Brock Purdy, but I'd like Brock better, frankly. Regardless, you're getting a young quarterback. You're either getting the final effort of a Spencer Rattler, or you're getting a Tyler Shugg in week 2. Like, I'll take that all day, every day. There's just not any obvious trap games on this schedule, because even the one where you would say, oh, well, where's the difficulty in travel? What's the real issue here? You go, oh, well, you have a tough back-to-back on the road, Houston, and then you have to stay out east. But you get the Giants on the back end of that. You know, you're coming off a bye. Where you go? You got Tennessee at home. You have Cleveland leading into a bye. I mean, all of the little pratfalls that you could microanalyze they don't have any of them. They don't have any of them. And this is an appreciably worse roster than they had last year. Obviously, a healthy version is a much better roster, because last year's version of the 49ers never really showed up for a game or training camp, it should be noted. But if we're just looking at player-to-player, quasi-Madden ratings, whatever, their roster has gotten worse. But their schedule has gotten so much easier, and the schedule was made so much easier, it's very difficult for me not to see 10 wins on this thing as it currently stands.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, if we did the exercise of win-loss, 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 as my 14-year-old and I did the other night.
That's what I call Jake, too.
He's super negative, right? My 14-year-old was like, he picked the Niners to go 11-6.
Yeah. It's really
and he was
hard.
being super negative.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, they're going to lose to the Colts. They're getting swept by the Rams. Every good team on their schedule beat them in his mind. And they lost all the tough games, and they still won 11-6. To me, there's a 3-week stretch that if you say, well, okay, what's the toughest? At Rams. But, I mean, even at Rams, I mean, what are we talking about? That's going to be 75% red in that stadium.
It's a Thursday night game, too. So you have just the immediacy of it. Those are weird games that can go
favors
either way.
The home team generally, and the Rams are at home. But
who is the home team? I mean, that's an hour flight. I mean, if someone's commuting from where I'm up, I mean, it's probably easier for me to get to the Rams stadium than it is for me to get to Levi Stadium some days.
Seriously. But, I mean, Rams in week 5 in L.A. Yeah. Stafford is old, but it's early in the year. Yeah, and it's like, so I think you're going to get the Rams A game probably right there in that window. Mm-hmm. And then you're probably going to get your only hot weather, real hot game of the year is week 6 in Tampa. That's first week in October in Tampa. That's going to be a smoking hot game with all kinds of humidity and heat, you would think. And Tampa's good. And
9.5. Yeah,
and then
that's their win total.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good team. Then I think the sleeper tough game is week 7, because I'm a huge Michael Penix fan, and I really believe that Michael Penix has come in, and I think he is going to be really, really good. And I would not be surprised if this year Michael Penix, puts himself into the debate of, Jaden Daniels or Michael Penix. Well, and I expect that this year. So I expect Atlanta is going to be good in week 7. Then you got Houston in week 8 on the road. I would say that's a pretty tough 4-game stretch right there.
I'll say this. I mean, I'm a big Penix fan too, but I really don't understand what the rest of the Atlanta roster is right now. So being at home is a big help. Of course, coming back from an East Coast trip is never easy. Going out East is never easy. The Houston game, I have it as a win. There's something way off and something downright bizarre about how Houston is building its football team. Nick Caserio just keeps making weird moves. And like they give their second round pick a 4-year guaranteed contract. Why are you doing that? What is the upside of that? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense to me. They're going out here and they're getting rid of Tunsil. They're putting together this big hulking offensive line for a quarterback that, listen, he's not a scrambler, but he's fairly mobile. I don't quite see the vision of what it is they're doing. They have a lot of receivers that can run a deep post, though. My God, do they have receivers that can run deep post? They're basically going to run an NFL blitz offense, is what I can tell. And maybe Joe Mixon will make it to week 6 behind that line. I don't get their defense. I don't get a lot of their moves on offense. Their quarterback is sick, no question about it, but there's something deeply bizarre about Houston. And again, I'm looking at the win totals here because I think that's the informative number. And they're at 9.5. I'm fading Houston in general. So while I don't disagree at all that is the bookend to a really tough week, and maybe you can even add New York just because you either come back to San Francisco and then fly to New York, like that's a problem in and of itself. And who knows what they'll do in sort of this dead man walking year for Dable and Shane. Like, I don't know, but that Houston game doesn't scare me as much. I'd almost take Atlanta to win more than I'd take Houston to win, with Houston being at home. I'm out on the Texans. And then again, some of these other teams that you look at the schedule, like, okay, you get Carolina. Like, Carolina just doesn't impress me. Cleveland is going to be way worse than 5.5. Cleveland has a chance to be just truly god-awful. Tennessee, I'm not in on Brian Callahan at all. We can say Cam Ward is great and all. Like, there is something rotten there. Even the Colts, 7.5. Who's their quarterback? I mean, by then, who's their quarterback? This is the definition of if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, who do you want? It's on the road. It's Monday Night Football. I don't. The Niners just got gifts on gifts on gifts here. And the fact that even someone who's looking at their roster, complaining about it all offseason, complaining about a lot of their draft picks, like just not loving everything, not loving almost anything that they're doing, save for Mykel Williams. The fact that I'm here and being like, damn, they don't even need to win the division because the wild card's wrapped up. Like before the season starts, like they're getting a playoff game. It might be on the road, but they're getting a playoff game. The fact that I'm saying that's a favorable ass schedule there.
Well, they bet, but you better. It's one thing to have expectations, but you still got to do it. I mean, you got to do it. And the bottom line is you just never know in the NFL. I mean, teams come out of nowhere. I mean, I hear your argument for Houston, but I could probably, and I don't know anything about their new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley. I don't know much about Nick Caley, but I mean, they definitely got weapons. I mean, you've got Nico Collins. These are just the receivers they have right now. Nico Collins, John Mechie, Christian Kirk, Tank Dell, Dell's hurt, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Xavier Hutchinson, Justin Watson from Kansas City. Yep. They got a bunch of dudes. I mean, that's a bunch of guys there for sure. Braxton Berrios. Their offensive line is, I don't know, is it going to be better? They brought in Laken Tomlinson. They brought in Cam Robinson. They drafted
Cam Robinson and Laken Tomlinson, almost inarguably the two worst regular starting offensive linemen in the NFL last year. Laken Tomlinson. But I'm just saying, but now he's in probably a little bit better organization. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, he was. They also brought in Trent Brown. They brought in Ed Ingram. I mean, they made a lot of changes to their offensive line. They traded next year's, was it first or third? They traded a high pick, I believe, to get up in the 4th round for Woody Marks. So they must really love Woody Marks. The idea of pairing him. I mean, I think he's okay. I liked him at Mississippi State. I wouldn't have traded up. I wouldn't have traded my 3rd round pick next year in a running back deep draft for Woody Marks. I thought that was Cesario kind of, I don't know, getting everything that he does is bizarre and weird now. I mean,
but defensively, they do have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and that guy's violent as hell. And everywhere he goes,
awesome.
Everywhere he seems to go, they it seems to do okay. Yeah. Will Anderson, you just mentioned on the front. They have Fadakazi up front. They have Daniil Hunter up front. Yep. You still have Aziz. They have a great secondary with Lassiter and Stingley and now C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Jalen
Pollock.
Petre.
Yeah.
They got guys. I mean,
No
they got
doubt about
guys.
it. No doubt about it. There's something weird, though, happening there, and I don't want any part of it. I just want to fade it from a distance. And by the way, that doesn't, as much as I'm saying, hey, I think the Niners can go in there and win there, I think when you're looking at this schedule, and this is maybe a fundamental difference than in years past, when you're looking at this schedule, you're having to almost shoehorn in losses because there is a legitimate shot that after the Rams game, maybe Tampa, so let's say after Tampa, they're favorited in every single game from that point on. They'll be favorited in 14 games this year, minimum, because they start the season as 1.5-point favorites at Seattle. So
I love the way the season starts for the Niners, not just week one, but the fact that 3 of the Niners' first 5 are against the NFC West. I love that because
huge for them.
22 and 23, they went 11-1, and last year they went 1-5. And that's it right there. So you might as well bring it on right up front. If you're not going to be able to beat Seattle, LA, and Arizona, you're not going to be the team that you want to be. You're just not going to be that team.
It's also huge for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and everybody who has been preaching this gospel of being in the building, bringing it from day one, locking in early. Everyone got their extra couple weeks of rest this year. Frankly, some of them got way more than a couple weeks with the way that the season went. They have been pretty hardcore about not easing into this season, but hitting the ground running right now. OTAs, rookie minicamp, all this time that they've had in the facility. And every team preaches it, but I think that they're really trying to practice what they preach here. Last year's training camp, as you and I both said a million times, it wasn't just sleepy. It was kind of embarrassing. It was frankly kind of unprofessional. They never had the team on the field together, specifically the offense. It was just who's injured today, who's got drama today, who's not showing up today. They never practiced, and they eased into the season, and thank goodness the Jets were there to make everyone feel good in week one. But this is a team that has a notorious streak of easing into seasons. Even if the Niners were doing this thing, and I applaud them for doing it, it's kind of a logical thing to do, saying, hey, we got to come from the jump. We got to reestablish a winning culture here this year. And that means guys in the building in the spring. That means bringing it in training camp. We're going to be physical. We're going to play fast. You know what really helps with that? Having a division game on the road in week one, because there's no easing into a division game. A division game, here's some stakes right here, right now. We got to win in week one. That doesn't allow you the opportunity to be like, yeah, we'll figure it out as we go. We'll get it all sorted. We can't do the Kyle Shanahan, let's see where we're at the end of September when you already have 3 games. What do you have, 3 games against the division in September? I mean, that's not, we're going to find out early. We're going to find out.
It's going to be awesome. I mean, it's Clay against Clint in week one. I mean, it's on. It's Kubiak on Kubiak crime. The Niners, as far as the rest thing, over the last 2 seasons, they've had the NFL's 3rd worst rest differential, and they've traveled the most miles of any team, which is always kind of the case, them or Seattle. Last year, though, the Niners were minus 22 in rest days against the league average.
It was comical.
The Niners were against their opponents, I should say. Yeah. The Niners were minus 37 if you combine them with the Ravens. Because the Ravens were whatever they were, plus 15, plus 16 or something like that. The Niners were minus 37 compared to the Ravens.
And we all know what the Baltimore Ravens did, which is barely more than the Niners.
But, I mean, beyond that, forget what they did. That's ridiculous.
That was criminal.
That is ridiculous. But, I mean, it's not even criminal. It's just like there is nowhere. Like, when you go look at the standings, they'll show you the records. When you go look at ESPN.com to look at the matchups, they'll show you the records, and they'll show you sometimes the point spread. Mm-hmm. But nowhere does it ever show that one team over the course of a 4.5-month season had a month and a week extra of rest over a 4.5-month season. That's not just an advantage, that's a totally different schedule. That's a totally different deal.
And this year they're +6.
The +9. +9, at least from what I saw. +9, according to
ESPN
Guy.
saying 6, but you know what? No.
Guy Haberman said +9. I'll go with that. But either way, they face 0 teams off a bye. Last year they faced 4 teams off a bye.
4. Yeah.
This year, the 2 games, because they're always. What I would say is this: if you're ever going to wager on the NFL, and God knows we all do.
It's illegal in the state of California, Larry, and I would never be.
Okay.
I would never.
Lots of people wager on football. And yet, how many of you wagered on football last year without knowing the rest advantage or disadvantage of either team that was involved in the game that you were betting? To me, that is crucial data, and you got to know it. For example, this year, the Niners' biggest rest disadvantage. A couple years ago, they had a 13-day rest disadvantage to the Bengals, and it showed. They couldn't stop the Bengals. The Bengals came in. They absolutely dominated them, and it was really ugly. It really was.
Yeah.
This year, the Niners in the Chicago game will have a 2-day rest disadvantage. And in the Tennessee game, Tennessee's coming off their bye, so the Niners will have a 7-day Tennessee rest disadvantage. So
you don't really need that much for Tennessee, but yeah.
Probably not. But if you're looking at that spread and you see Niners -14 or something like that against Tennessee, you may want to stay away just now knowing that Tennessee's going to have an extra week for that game, and that's the Niners' biggest rest disadvantage. I will say this. Last year, their biggest rest disadvantage was the home game in the second half of the year against Seattle, and it absolutely came home to roost in that game because the Niners were totally dog-tired at the end, and Geno just carved them up and ran up and down the field and won the game in the fourth quarter, and the Niners had nothing in the gas tank at all. So I'm a big believer now in at least citing at least looking at every game I wager on. What's the rest deal here? When did these teams last play? Who's the more rested team? Because it doesn't, can't see it when they're running onto the field. It's a factor that's buried that you can't necessarily see with your eye, but it's a factor, and it has to be accounted for.
And something to take into account as well. I mean, I think it's Bruce Feldman in college football calls it the body blow theory of, okay, who did you play last week to? What kind of physicality do they typically bring? So when you factor that in on top, and we won't really know that. That's a guess, a pretty strict guess from this point. And the Niners were, I think, what was it? Was it the 2019 year that everybody everyone who played the week after they played.
It was
lost every game.
Yeah, they lost the year after playing the week after playing the Niners. Was it 3 years ago?
Something
that team lost every time. Yeah,
right. So the Niners were the one delivering the body blows. So you have that. I just was able to actually the NFL strength of schedule, right? So they say, it's the easiest schedule compared to last year. Well, as I was kind of running through some of the numbers, and again, I said that the win totals are I think, more effective way to do it. And when I did that, it almost felt more favorable than last year's record. The Niners are far and away the easiest schedule in the NFL this year based on win total. There's no team really.
Who's close?
The Patriots.
I thought Seattle had doesn't Seattle play the same division in the same...
No, Seattle's right around bog standard. They're 13th here, according to Sharp Football Analytics. There's really no way because they didn't give the raw numbers here. But it's the Niners here, the Patriots here, Saints, Falcons. Like it is.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. From what I've read, Saints and Falcons are the two other teams besides the Niners that have, in any way you slice it, a very favorable schedule.
And New England as well, the forgotten Patriots, but no one's even particularly close. And by the way, like you're looking at the line, it's all just a bunch of teams just right next to each other, slightly sloping down. And then way up here, it's like Steph Curry shooting percentage. Just way up here is Steph Curry, like distance and percentage in. So, here you go. Get your expectations up. Everything that I have said up until this point nullified by the schedule. I don't care what the roster's like. You could put together a pretty half-ass roster, and you should still be able to put together a playoff team against what is expected. And obviously, yes, Larry, you're right. There's always going to be surprises, but that goes both ways. What is expected is that the Niners should have double-digit wins just based on how the NFL scheduled them up.
If they get off to a hot start, watch the fuck out for the 49ers. And that's
Totally.
what I would say.
Well,
because from Thanksgiving on, I mean, look what they do after mid-November. Look at their schedule after the Arizona game on November 16th. This is how the Niners come home. National TV Monday nighter at home against Carolina. I mean, is that a win or what?
Fly over from Charlotte and hang out at the Hilton all day, you know?
Yeah. At Cleveland, then the bye week.
Pre-bye.
Probably one of the biggest challenges is they get the late bye. That's a challenge.
Yes.
But with so many young players, it may be okay.
I think that's a weird way to refer to the Cleveland Browns, but, you're right.
But look at the schedule. Carolina at home, at Cleveland, bye week, Tennessee at home, at Indy, Chicago at home, Seattle at home. I mean, in that Seattle game, who knows if they'll be playing for anything. The Niners, if they can get off to any kind of a hot start, they're going to win a lot of games. Now, that being said,
there's an argument for 11 straight on this thing. Now, they could also start 3-5 and still make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. They can also, and people say, well, why do they always start on the road? They start on the road because they ask the league to keep them out of their home window for the first couple weeks because of the heat on the sun side at Levi's. But in a weird way, I kind of feel like that is also an advantage. I mean, to not have to host, to say, hey, we don't want early home games, or, to have less home games in September means that you're going to have more home games generally in November and December. Mm-hmm. And since home in San Francisco in December is 55 and sunny, and that could be brutal in a Buffalo, Green Bay situation.
As we saw.
As we saw. So, I mean, in a way, the Niners asking the league to keep them out of their home stadium early in the year really does give them some kind of a little bit of an advantage, I think. And, we'll see. And
that's the real reason why they'll never put a roof on that place.
Yeah. Okay. There's one soundbite today that really got me rankled.
Oh, boy. Let me guess. Cowherd.
Yes, Cowherd.
I'm stunned.
And this guy is such a cluck.
Yeah.
And it's like,
was cluck the word you were going for there?
Yeah, I was, because this guy is a cluck, and I think of a cluck as just some dorky chicken kind of guy.
You don't have to.
This guy, if you just take his, if you're just gonna, talk about a singular take, he's great. His singular takes are great. It's only when you have to match up his takes over and over again that you're like, wait a second, this guy's got some kind of axe to grind. And the latest is, I mean, Colin Cowherd is a talented guy. He's a national guy, but he's really not a national guy because he's a big Seahawk honk. He's very much a Seahawk fan. And so he doesn't like the Niners for whatever reason. He said the Niners didn't have a good draft. That's fine. That's totally his prerogative. He wasn't the only person to say the Niners didn't have a good draft. Other people felt the same way. Go for it. That's fine. But then he also, before the draft, and maybe even after the draft, said the Niners are the worst team in the NFC West. Okay. Well, if you're going to say they're the worst team in the NFC West, then you would have to be like, hey, if they win 10 games, they've had a good year. Oh, not Colin Cowherd. Here he is.
I have been a skeptic on the last couple of drafts for the San Francisco 49ers. I have said this, they're getting old and expensive. I don't like their offensive line. I thought this year's draft was a lot of hit and miss with 11 picks, 4 or 5 I liked, 5 or 6 I didn't. But they have the easiest NFL schedule, I'm not joking, since the 2015 Atlanta Falcons. And it's based on 2 metrics. Number one is last year's results. So they're playing a lot of teams that were bad last year. And the second metric is a lot of teams that are projected to be lousy this year. So on two different metrics, they've got the easiest schedule. Now, I will say this. If you gave Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Matt Stafford, Josh Allen this schedule, it is 13 to 14 wins. This is an affront to competitive football. And I don't want to hear $55 million Brock Purdy. I don't want to hear any excuses, or I don't want to hear any pom-poms when he wins 10 games with this mess of a schedule. San Francisco, not only is this schedule littered with mediocrity, they don't face a single team off a bye. Okay. Outside of Matt Stafford twice and CJ Stroud once, they don't face what people view as an elite quarterback. In fact, it's rookie quarterbacks, it's quarterbacks without 20 total starts. So I'm done with the Brock Purdy excuses.
First of all, who's making Brock Purdy excuses? Second of all, what we're tired of was he says he's tired of Brock Purdy excuses. What I'm personally tired of is this moving of the goalposts. So the 49ers suck, according to Cowherd. That's totally fine. It's he doesn't believe in the Niners. That's fine. So lean into it. If you're going to tell me that a team is bad, then they're bad. You can't tell me, if they win 10 games, that's not, it's like, well, wait a second.
Well, that's a semantical
You knew
thing.
who they, you said it off the start of this show.
Yeah.
All we found out 2 days ago was the order.
Which
we
was,
knew,
to be fair, which
matters.
was favorable.
Matters. But that's not what he's talking about. He's not He's not saying the Niners have an easy schedule because of the order. He didn't even mention the order there. He's talking about the actual teams they're playing.
Yeah.
That we knew that at the end of the regular season. Right. You called them the worst team in the division.
Right.
You said they had a terrible draft. And now it really sounds like you're kind of hedging because you think they're going to win 10 or 11 games. So you're like, hey, they're not good even if they win 10 games. So I think we need to get to, okay, the schedule's favorable. Okay, that's a factor. It's not the only factor because teams get better and get worse in the NFL, and you never know. But what is success for the Niners? Because I don't want to play this game with these Niner haters all year where it's like, yeah, well, they won 10, but, stop it. Stop it.
Okay.
And where was Cowherd's video a year ago when the 49ers had the worst scheduling rest differential in the entire league? There was no mention of that. There was no you know what? If Brock Purdy this year wins 7 games, that's going to be great because of the incredibly tough rest differential. And they're playing 4 teams off a bye, and they have a worse rest differential than 13 teams, and whatever.
Well, they were
all
also,
the different
they
things.
were also running back a team that went to the Super Bowl. So the idea that we all agreed that the schedule was tough, but the theory was, at least at the time, that the team should be tougher because they had tough schedules before and they had pretty significant success. Let me just.
There's just a lot of adversity beyond the schedule, but the schedule was a big portion of why the 49ers were gassed.
We knew it for months.
They're real. I mean, first of all, let me just say this before we go any further, because I don't want anybody who's watching this to think that I in any way am trying to skirt the real reason. I have said it repeatedly on the stream with you and others. The real reason that the 49ers fell to 6 wins last year is because they screwed up the 21, 22, and 23 drafts. Yeah. That's the real reason. That's the first, the second, and the third reason. All these other reasons are secondary reasons. The primary reason was they effed up the draft. If they didn't F up the draft as bad as they did, and I think people are just now realizing exactly how badly they effed up those drafts. That's really the key factor. So I don't want to. I'm not here to sit there and say that Cowherd doesn't have any points. But I'm just saying, dude. On one hand, you're telling us that the Niners are bad, but then on the other hand, you're saying, but they're going to win 10 games, and that means I'm going to look bad. So now I'm going to set the bar at 10 games or 11 games or 12 games. So I guess maybe we all need to collectively figure out, where is the bar for the Niners actually? Where are people going to say good season as opposed to, oh, yeah, it was an easy schedule? I want to know tonight. I want to paint that. I want to define before we get off this live stream what is success and what is going to be viewed as a favorable schedule. And that's only the reason they're doing it.
I'll give you the answer right now. Success is NFC Championship game. I'll give some,
That's it? They got to go to the NFC Championship game for success?
That's
pretty setting yourself up for failure. There's only going to be two teams in 16 in that game.
Well,
so you're setting yourself up for failure.
I think that's I'm willing to discuss pulling it back around. I think you have to win a playoff game.
Yeah, no question. I would say you got to win
is that
double digits, and you got to win a playoff game.
I think
that's where I would
argument.
be at.
Okay, we're good there. That's a fair thing, because I don't think Super Bowl or bust. This team's not good enough, but I think you need to win a playoff game. That shows me more than that's better than I think that they can do as I look at their roster right now. But the way that the schedule breaks, I have a very hard time seeing them not make the playoffs. And again, to Cowherd's point, this is a laughably favorable schedule. Again, not just, hey, we've known these teams suck, all this stuff, but also the way that it's structured is beneficial as well. So, I just want to make a point of contention. He said they're the worst team in the NFC West. The NFC West that doesn't mean they're a bad team. Sometimes, worst team in the NFC North or AFC North, sometimes a good team.
Has anybody ever in our lifetime finished last in the division and won 10 games? No.
Difference between worst team in a division and bad team, and also a difference between team that
is the worst. He's saying both, though. He's saying they're going to be the worst team in the division, and they're for sure going to win 10. And that's what he made it sound like.
That's just not having your ducks in a row. But it should be noted that this is a brutally tough division. Not a single team is favored to have a losing or expected to have a losing record in this division. I think Arizona is a sleeper, not just for the division, but for everything. We know what the Rams are, 9.5, and then we know Seattle. So when you look at this schedule, you say to yourself, okay, what would be the win total without this schedule? What is the 49ers talent win total in a vacuum? 500, right? That seems fair. This is about a 500 football team when you look at the roster. There's some real SF Giants energy to what they got going on. Some high end, some low end.
With this schedule, you mean?
No. So remove from the schedule, in a vacuum, when you look at the talent on this roster, the injuries that are obviously they're coming into the season with Ayuk, so that, is
I think that's fair. I think 500's fair because ESPN's power rankings list them 15th.
I think we're all in agreement there. This is about a 500 football team, and that when we look at this schedule, it's worth 2 or 3 wins. So if you were to say, and again, this isn't accurate, I don't have this number because I haven't done this thought exercise for each of the other teams in the division, and so it isn't, again, apples to apples. But if you were to look at Arizona and you would say, what's their talent like? Let's call it 500. The Rams, game or 2 over. Seattle, 500, maybe a little less. Now we're into, and by the way, those are teams that have sort of middle of the pack schedules. I think Arizona actually has a tougher one. I'm looking at the chart right now. Oh, the Rams have the toughest one. Seattle's right there in the middle. Where is Arizona? Arizona's actually slightly favorable, right? So it all kind of lines up in that regard. When you look at that, there's an argument to be made that if we were to do talent in a vacuum, the Niners would be tied for last or last in the division. But because their schedule is so much more favorable than any other team in football, like a legitimate exponential jump from the second easiest schedule, just off the charts easy, that's worth 2 or 3 wins. And in that, you can go from a team in last place to first place in the same division without any appreciable increase in talent, just because your schedule's that much easier. It's on Cowherd for.
But do you see where he's at, though? I mean, do you see where he's at? He's like, they're the worst team in the division, but if they win 10 games, it's not success. I mean, that is having your cake. That's having your cake and eating it too. That's basically saying the only way you're going to be wrong about the San Francisco 49ers is if they win 13 games.
which
right?
they won't.
But you never know. I mean,
Unless
you
they
never
run
know.
off that
It
11
wouldn't.
in a
It wouldn't
row.
take much of a. I'll say this: they were some games last year that you're for sure losses. They have no for sure losses.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah,
So
there's
so
not
there's a
game that
chance, and they
should go
also
into.
have
Yeah.
they also have, according to their offensive coordinator, CMC's looking awesome, and Purdy's having a great offseason. So I don't know what that means, but I'll just take him at face value on that, since I'm not there. And if that is indeed the case, I think the 49ers are probably going to win a lot of games. If CMC really is looking awesome and Brock is having a great offseason, that's a major – those are two major – let's say every team's got 5 to 7 or 10 questions or whatever. That's got to be 1 or 2 for the Niners, or 2-1, 1-2, 1-2-3. It's somewhere near the top of the list.
Yeah.
If that's true, and I don't know, because who knows? I don't know Kubiak well enough to know if he's an optimist or if he's a realist, if he's underplays things or overplays things. But he told us, hey, CMC's looking awesome, and Brock has had
He's a handsome
amazing
gentleman.
offseason. Yeah, he's had an amazing
and Brock,
offseason.
and Brock is having an amazing offseason because the market is up and he's just making more money every day. Every minute that they wait, he's having an amazing offseason. He doesn't have to do anything. He just keeps making more money.
It does make you wonder, though. I mean, I just, to me, I just don't. It's like, if you want, have some balls. If you're going to sit there and tell everybody that the 49ers are the worst team in the division, then have some stones about it. Don't sit there and start, because you knew the schedule was going to be favorable, and it's not all that. It's not like the setup of the games is like, oh my God,
It might be
it's
worth
ridiculous.
The win. It might be
It
worth
might be, but I mean, it's not like it's that crazy. The real advantage are the teams. The teams that they're playing are the advantage.
Teams are the majority of the advantage. But
if you flip the order any way you wanted to, if you just took these exact same teams and jumbled the order in a different fashion,
earlier
you wouldn't have an
talking,
appreciably tougher
We're
schedule.
talking about the 4 games off a bye and the rest differential. That could have very well come into play here.
Yes.
And that could have evened
that would have
out
been an
some of the
equalizer.
advantage.
Yeah,
right?
no question.
So the way that it's broken down, it's like not only did they get the easiest schedule by last year's numbers, they got the easiest schedule by this year's projections, and they have no obvious rest differentiation problems whatsoever. They're one of the more favorable rest.
So there are 2 factors, that go against them.
Okay.
They have the latest bye of anybody in football,
right?
And they have the biggest travel. Among the most traveling teams.
Which get in line. I mean, every year, unless they're going to move
it's a fact.
to Kansas City full time.
No, but I mean those are factors. I mean, it is a factor.
Question.
They will be traveling more air miles than most teams, and they do have a very, very late in the season bye. And I don't think that actually. I actually think that's another thing that kind of benefits the 49ers. Why? Because the 49ers don't have a brand new head coach. They don't have they have a new defensive coordinator, but he's been there before. They got a lot of continuity in their organization. I don't think it's going to burn them necessarily that they don't have a bye week until late. I think the later bye week probably is going to benefit Kittle, Trent, CMC, and several of the Niners, maybe more important players. So, we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
It is what it is. I mean, there is no right. I'll tell you this. There's a wrong time to have a bye week, and it's certainly not late. It's early. You don't want that bye week in 3 or 4. I don't know when they start it these days. But the last thing you want is that early bye week. It does no one any favors. That's the last time you need it. If it's still...
Chris, Mr. 49er, says, Larry can't comprehend what Dieter is saying.
Well,
does it sound like
I speak in tongues?
Does it sound like I can't comprehend what you're saying?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
We can agree. Disagree.
I think I pretty much understand what Dieter's saying.
I'll say this on the Niners air travel. So I'm looking at CBS right now. They did or they stole it. I can't tell you where this is coming from, but I'm going to attribute it to CBS. And the Niners are 5th in air travel miles at 28,000. We're doing great stuff for the planet, you guys. Chargers, Rams, Seahawks, and Jaguars 1 through 4 on that one. And they're going to cross 32 time zones, which doesn't seem that crazy until you look at the Bills, who cross.
Or I was going to say Cincinnati. Look at Cincinnati and
8,000 air miles.
How many?
8,000.
Yeah, so the Niners are 26,000.
Yeah.
They have more than 3 times the air miles of the Browns.
The Chargers are going to do 9,000 more miles roughly and cross 10 more time zones.
Because they're going international?
I don't recall that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Oh. No, they're going to play in Brazil. So, let's use the Rams. Do the Rams play internationally? This would be
but the Niners did
previously researched, Flair. But the Rams are going to be at 3,444 time zones. Yeah. Listen, at least they don't have to go internationally. That's another way they could have gotten screwed.
Yeah. Oh, and it's funny. I asked Todd Husak about that. I said, what's something that you always look at, when you were in the NFL for a short amount of time, but what were something you looked at? What are something the players look at? And he's like, I always looked at international travel. Are we going to have international travel? Because that does take quite a bit out of it.
They have international travel when Todd was playing?
He said they did, but it was obviously much more muted and infrequent.
Yeah.
What do you think, as we switch gears from the schedule here, what did you think? It's funny. I did a stream the other day, and we talked about the most important additions of the offseason, the most valuable additions of the offseason. If you were saying, 1, 2, 3, the most important new 49ers that weren't here a year ago, are you going with Robert Saleh at the top? Are you going with Brant Boyer? Are you going with Mac Jones?
Yeah, I'm going with the special teams coordinator.
Well, you can go with anybody you want, but who do you think's going to, of the new players,
I'll give you
who
3.
makes the biggest impact? Or not the new players, the new people.
Yeah, Saleh's
players
one.
Or coaches.
Saleh's one. I don't think that he'll have too many 12 men on the field penalties. Just a baseline level of competence that, Steve Wilkes had a baseline level of competence. He also had a bone to pick with everybody all the time, which was just downright exhausting to the point where they fired him because they were exhausted of him trying to prove points and doing his own thing. And it's like, geez Louise, I know that you wanted your defensive coordinator to kind of run his own shop, but that's a bridge too far. And then to go the opposite end with Sorensen, who didn't know what he was doing. So yes, having Robert Saleh will be a benefit, even if I don't think the defense will necessarily show it this year. I'll give you 2 other names.
Okay.
I think Michael Williams, and Mac Jones are, first off, not a lot of additions in general, save for the coaching staff. But Mac Jones having a backup that, do you love it? Not particularly. But do you feel a lot better than last year's crop of nothing? If Brock were to go out for a couple games, you bet. If you got Mac Jones and you got to go to Cleveland, you feel fine. You're probably still favored. I don't know if I want him playing in a division game, but there's a couple games on this schedule where it's you can give Brock the day off. They'll probably be fine. So I think having a better or an upgraded backup quarterback, if any team should know how important that is, it's the 49ers. And I appreciate that they took that to heart this season. And then with Williams, he can be what they wanted Yetur Gross-Matos to be, but I just think on the baseline level, his floor of being able to set an edge is going to really, really help. We've talked a lot about defensive tackle. I think we're going to continue to talk a lot about defensive tackle because the depth just isn't there, even with 2 rookies that we're both bullish on, or at least I'll speak for myself, are bullish on. But the defensive end rotation is equally hairy. And adding a player like Williams, who in theory can give you what you need now and can get better throughout the season, is huge. Because I don't know any of the trays that are supposed to be starting at cornerback, so I can't speak to any of them. They got 3 trays ready to go at left corner, and one
they
of the
dumped
trays
Tomlinson.
Will win.
They dumped Trey Tomlinson. They're
well,
down to 2 trays.
That's a travesty. Only 2 trays. The 3 trays was going to be a fun thing.
I'll go Brant Boyer. I feel like he's going to be a culture-changing type player, coach.
Yeah.
And then I'll go with C.J. West.
Sure.
I just think that C.J. West. By the way, C.J. West is going to wear number 99, not 50. After all, he's going to wear 99.
That's good.
And Collins will wear 95.
That's good.
But
That's a good number for him.
I think C.J. West, definitely Brant Boyer. I think Nick
Did the
Martin.
soul patch speak to you? Did the soul patch?
No, just the fact that this guy's spent 10 years in the NFL as a player. There's an edge to him. I think it's. Yeah, I kind of liked the conviction that he spoke with. I don't know. He just seems like a fired up special teams guy. I'm kind of just going with the, hey, it can't be worse. I couldn't say definitively that Brant Boyer's even better than the last guy, but
he does come highly recommended. I've heard about Brant Boyer from some folks with other teams, and they go, oh yeah, he's good. Like no one's speaking that highly. No one's like, he's a genius. He's reinventing special teams, but they go, yeah, he's good. And to be fair, looking at this roster, god damn it, there are a lot of special teamers on this roster. He will have ample fuel for the engine. I mean,
he loves Junior Bergen, that's for sure.
Yeah,
which was,
you better be right.
Yeah, you better be right. Tim Kawakami reported today that the 49ers could be involved in an NFC West in-season version edition of the HBO Hard Knocks. AFC Central was last year's in-season 24 subjects, and they're saying maybe it might be in NFC West. Shanahan and Lynch are both on record saying they're very much against participating in the HBO series.
I'm stunned.
HBO, the league has a bunch of rules. If you do this and this and this, you don't have to participate. One of them is make the playoffs. So the Niners could be forced this year, because they didn't make the playoffs last year, to participate. It seems like this might be the easiest of if you're going to have it done, why not be part of a foursome and have, a quarter of the
I've maintained that logic in a lot of things in my life. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're, if you feel like it's a gigantic interruption, well, it's a huge interruption to produce a weekly show, but it's maybe a less of an interruption if you're only going to be a quarter of that show.
Yeah. They're not giving it all away.
Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, as a fan, I want to see this. I think it will add all kinds of discussion points and things that we can talk about on the record, off the record. I think that's also why Lynch and Shanahan are going to hate it.
Yeah.
And the players may hate it. But I would, I'll say this might be the year to do it. I mean, you got an easy schedule. You have a bunch of young guys. Yeah. You want to get it out of the way. If you do it, then you're done doing it for a long time. This might be okay. I personally, as a fan, I want to see it.
I've covered two teams that have done Hard Knocks. I did the Dolphins back in the day with Joe Philbin, and then the Hard Knocks with Gruden and the Raiders. And
it's the worst ever.
It was awful. It started strong with the "I'm into fucking nightmare" speech, which is an all-timer, and then got so much worse so fast. I'll say this. Hard Knocks is not, in fact, all that difficult to do. You think about it might actually be a pretty significant departure for the 49ers, who do not have a big in-house media team putting out stuff. But in this day and age where there are 14 people, seemingly for most NFL teams, wearing one of those bibs, putting a cell phone or a camera in players' faces, and there's just everything is, even players do this, where there's a camera following these people at all times for their Instagrams or YouTube channels or whatever. Like, the idea of having NFL films, all reputable NFL films who do unbelievable work with very little to work with in a lot of cases, Raiders, having that be some sort of a distraction, like, that's kind of weak. It's kind of a weak argument in this day and age. I'm not disagreeing with maybe it's all too invasive, but this is the world we live in, and I say lean into it.
Too invasive. What? These
that's
guys
their
need
argument.
I know, but get a grip. Get a grip. This is entertainment. The only reason you guys you're a freaking football coach. The only reason you make $12 million is because all these motherfuckers care. And that's why there is a Hard Knocks.
Correct.
So before you bemoan it to the death, you may want to, next time you check your balance, say, hey, you know what? Maybe I will do Hard Knocks.
Well, I'll say this. They should thank their lucky stars that they weren't asked, or that they weren't forced to do the off-season Hard Knocks, which
they canceled, didn't they?
Well, because Joe Shane did it so well that no one could possibly follow that.
It was great.
It was fantastic for us, two people who consistently think we can do it better, because now we have clear proof that we can do it better.
Well, I wasn't even looking for that. I just thought it was great because, the pressure points of an off season.
Yeah.
I mean, Wellington Mara saying, I'd really hate to lose. Or is it Wellington Mara's son?
I believe
John
Wellington
Mara.
Mara has been dead for 30 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
John Mara, who's Wellington Mara's son. But John Mara with his, I just would hate to lose Saquon to,
you can't script
to the
It'd
Eagles.
be so much better. I won't be able to sleep at night, buddy. I bet you will on your pile of money.
Probably enjoyed the Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, boy. It was fantastic fodder when the child knew who to draft instead of the GM. When they tried to squeeze Saquon out over like $2 million. When they're going through their draft process. Oh, no, what was it? They were trying to hire a defensive coordinator, and they come in with printed out PFF sheets. And it's like, this is what I've been telling people, Larry, for 10 years, if not longer. It's not all that intelligent.
How about Brian Dable walking up to Joe Shane like just some idiot going, hey, man, look at this. Look at my phone, man. This guy's 6th against the pass, 7th against the run, 3rd against the blitz.
Sounds like my Friday streams.
Look at this guy. This guy was 3rd against the blitz and 3rd down. I mean,
those guys kept their jobs.
Jesus. Dable, I thought Shane looked a little silly. Dable looked like a doofus. I thought that. He looked
kind of cool in the quarterback meetings at the combine.
Yeah, but he was just a total. I mean, just a doofus when it came time for you could just tell. It's like, I want Devin Singletary. What? You're gonna kiss off Saquon Barkley and you're gonna be fired up about Devin Singletary like he's like some reasonable facsimile of fucking Saquon Barkley. I mean, that was. I thought Dable looked horrible.
Could you imagine how great it would have been watching John Lynch neutered, trying to bring together a consensus as Jed York consistently looks to Saleh and says, we're paying you how much, you make the pick, where Kyle abdicates all responsibilities only at the last second to decide, actually, no, I do want the wide receiver from Ole Miss. Would it have been great to have followed around these scouts for the 49ers who just couldn't get hired anywhere else for the last decade and who Peter principled their way into top jobs? Wouldn't that have been great to watch so that I don't have to tell you? We could have clear cuts that we could put on Twitter and YouTube all the time to just say, you don't need us to bloviate about it. Here's a clip from HBO. That would have been great. This is not going to be great. And I'll also say this: I'm not going to resubscribe to HBO. I'm just not going to do it. I'm out. I can't do it anymore. I'm over it. I'm over it. We're in a recession, folks. I can't possibly be paying for HBO Max. And yes, they're calling it HBO Max again.
I will be the person who watches it for sure. I will be watching it. Larry, if the Niners are on it, I'll be watching it. I'll say this:
chum in the water. For somebody who, you got that Cowherd clip. You turned that into 30 minutes of gold, baby. Like, what are you going to do with a Hard Knocks episode?
Last time the Niners were involved in a Hard Knocks was when the Niners went to London to play Jacksonville, and they filmed 11? It. What I forget it was Dante Whitner was on the team, Justin Smith, and there was some great. There were some great scenes. I mean, there really were. I mean, that's what I look forward to it because it is going to give you some great stuff. Like one of the scenes that I remember is they're standing around at practice and Dante Whitner is terrified of a bee. And Justin Smith, the Cowboy's like, man, I thought you were a badass from Cincinnati. Now you're afraid of a bumblebee? It's like it was classic, man. It was a classic practice outtake. But I love some of that stuff. Some of that stuff is absolutely fantastic. All right, we only have another 25 minutes or so because we're going to finish up top of the hour. The York family today agreed to sell off 6% of the Niners to a trio of Bay Area families, not the Krugers or the Kurtenbachs.
But a Dieter did get in.
but there is a Dieter family, just a Dieter family. No E, no IE. It's just DEE.
Yeah.
TER, the Dieter family.
Phonetically great for us, not so great when you actually write it out.
So the York family agreed to sell off 6% of the Niners to a trio of Bay Area families for a valuation of the franchise at $8.5 billion, which, man, wouldn't you love to take a valuation of anything that you owned and find out that it's worth $8.5 billion? But so that means that they basically had a cash infusion today of $510 million from these three families. The families are the Kosia family, the Griffith family, and the Dieter family. And supposedly the Kosia family is buying the biggest stake in the Niners. Dieter, talk to us.
Sun Microchips guy?
I don't know. I don't know any of these people, but
right.
Talk to us like we're idiots here.
Yeah.
Why, when you haven't,
I should
when you
start
have the
doing
kind,
that now?
Yeah. When you have the kind of wealth that the Yorks have,
of course,
and you have an asset that has the kind of value that the 49ers represent, and not only what it represents in the present, but the growth in a short amount of time. I mean, we've seen this asset grow probably from $4.5 billion to $8.5 billion, probably in the last 5 years. I mean, it's probably grown by $4 billion in 5 years. So now they say, hey, you know what? We want somebody to buy in. We're, for whatever reason, I guess I'll ask you, what is the reason that the Yorks want, this infusion of cash? Are they cash poor? I've been told at times by people that this might be more about setting up the franchise in the event that any of the key owners pass, and that they want to make sure that they have kind of a plan going forward for how they want to go operate in a state plan.
Well, they've already made Jed the principal owner on that front, so that's it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt in that regard. The less you own, the less you have to maneuver. But with Jed becoming principal owner of the team instead of just CEO last year, that should be covered. Obviously, there's the back end dealings that need to be managed, and I couldn't speak to that. This is effectively they're taking out a home equity line of credit, except they never have to repay it. That's what they've done. They have, in those ads that say you could take money out of your house, that's called the second mortgage, and you do have to repay that one. In the 49ers case, they get to sell off 6% of a team. They still have all the controlling interest. They lose effectively nothing. And what they do is get a big old pile of cash. And that cash can be used for such things as stadium renovations, which they're currently sort of kind of doing, and certainly are not fun to pay for. Even if they think they'll get their money back based on the Super Bowl and certain events, you still have to put money up front. And a little thing called escrow, as it pertains to a quarterback who's about to sign a 9-figure deal, of which the NFL owners require 80% at least to be placed in escrow. So you're talking 9 figures in a bank account the day Brock Purdy puts pen to paper. And it's not to say that Jed York and the 49ers operations couldn't have put that money together, but ultimately they have an illiquid value, like the thing that they own that keeps going up in cost, they have to trade against, they have to sell against. There has to be at some point cash that comes out of it. And yes, they get tickets and merchandise and a big old check from the NFL every year. But as Jed has shown time and time again, there is the budget for the 49ers. There is the budget for 49ers Enterprise, which, by the way, I'd imagine is tapped out, seeing as they just bought a soccer team, albeit the second best soccer team in Glasgow, and like the 4th best in Scotland. But that's a personal opinion, up the Hibs. And they've been spending a lot of money. So I don't know if they couldn't have. I'm certain they could have, with some, I'd imagine, rather easy financial wrangling, gotten 9 figures together to put into a bank account so that if Brock Purdy signs, they can give him all of his guaranteed money. Or at least they have it.
I just don't understand why they wouldn't just borrow against their asset and pay themselves back over time, and then you don't have to. Then you have full control. I mean, the asset, when you have an asset that's appreciating at this rate, what's the risk in borrowing against that asset?
What's the risk in selling a percentage of it?
Well, because then the person, if you want to buy back that percentage, they may say, no, we don't want to sell it.
But you don't sell this with the intent of ever buying it back.
No, I know, but I'm just saying you lose control. They have you maintain more control if you take a loan out against your equity than if you sell off a chunk of the.
But you're taking out a loan at a rate, and even if it's an extremely favorable rate with the current market conditions, we're seeing a lot of like private equity come in as opposed to banks or large. Like there's a lot of private capital is what I should really call it, where there are large investment firms or in fact large hedge funds that will give out money at effectively loan shark rates. Because the money spigot, which was on for roughly 13 years with roughly 0% APR financing, right? Like the Fed had those numbers so low, the money spigot was just pouring out. And that's how you get Uber and Lyft and all of these companies that were bleeding cash forever. Private equity, thank you. Well, it's actually private capital. It's a whole other thing. But, and that is definitely not true, Mr. Sweden. The money spigot's been off for a while now. The last time the money spigot was on was post-pandemic when they knocked down all of the trading rates because there was no commerce happening in the world. Ever since then, it's been high as to combat inflation. So while these guys are operating on very different financial levels than we are, they're still giving up a percentage on the number that they're coming against. And those are big numbers. We're talking 9 figures. So a percentage on 9 figures is not an insignificant check to write. Whereas this, you are not writing any check. You are receiving money for something that you don't really even use. You don't even need it. If you were to do what the Raiders have done over the last several decades, which is to sell off so much of the team that you no longer, in fact, own the majority of it. In fact, you are only owning a plurality of it. And you have in the shares an argument that you always have to be the controlling party.
I don't think Al Davis, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't think Al Davis ever owned the majority of the Raiders. I think he always was a minority owner, but he had controlling interest.
And they've sold off more than that since then, right? So whatever it started with, it's down. It's probably below 30 now, which is why the NFL has to write the check to build the stadium in Vegas at a friends and family discount, even when the money spigot was on. I
mean, in short, it's basically that the Yorks are cash poor in the grand scheme of.
To be specific, I can't say that they're cash poor, but this
not cash poor in the general sense, but cash poor in maybe an ownership sense. Because
I don't know. I think most teams operate. I think most teams operate without a big old pile of cash. I think most teams operate where they spend the money that they make. This is an easier way to get a big old pile of $500 million than it is to borrow against the valuation of what it is. Clearly. It's just a percentage.
Otherwise, they would.
Otherwise,
because why would you introduce new people and complicate things?
But if you have to borrow,
didn't have to.
If you have to borrow at 5%, but you're selling 6%, you're probably having to borrow at 6%. That's probably the answer. Which is we'll give up 6% of the team, which we'll make up in a year, versus borrow and then have to pay off over several years at 6%, which is going to compound. So this is even if it was 2%, it's going to compound. So take the cash in hand now. They're not giving up any actual controlling interest. They might have to take a phone call every now and again, but these people can't band together and do anything. All 3 of them could try to poison pill the whole damn thing. They couldn't even come close because the Yorks still own 90-something% of the team. This is something that the Giants just did. This is something that I think, there's another team that's trying to do this right now. Oh, the Chargers are trying to do it right now. Everybody's going to be doing this because, again, it's easier to sell a portion of the team than it is to get the extremely favorable rates to borrow money so that you can have more cash in hand than it was 5-10 years ago. So that's why they do it.
Couple last thoughts with Dieter. DJ Humphries, Niners announced that they signed DJ Humphries. His agency put out a little social media announcement saying, "Hey, our guy DJ Humphries is signing with the 49ers, except Matt Mayoko says he didn't sign. And then I thought it was kind of interesting that after they supposedly signed DJ Humphries, who is not a great offensive lineman, but could be defined as maybe a swing tackle option for 2025.
For sure.
Then literally, a day later, here comes Andre Dillard and Nicholas Petit-Frere, who kind of are the exact same thing. They're backup offensive tackles, a varying degree of skill, who could be, viewed as potential 49er swing tackles. So is Humphries, what's your read on this? Does he have an injury? Is it something, that we're not envisioning here? Or is it maybe as simple as he thought he was going to be handed that swing tackle job and he doesn't want to have to compete against these two other guys for it? What do you think?
I think both of those are very viable theories. I think there's a third theory here, which I bet he got prorogued. I bet they actually looked at they agreed to the terms, right? You agree to these broad stroke terms, then they get into the nitty gritty of the contract and realize, oh, the Niners put 45 booby traps in this thing. And my guy's coming off a torn ACL in 23, and we can get something better from somebody else. The only entity that really announced this thing was his agency. I might look into a new agency if I were DJ Humphries, because they didn't do him any favors here. As for the Niners, the difference between DJ Humphries or any of these other swing tackles feels pretty marginal to me. He's not very good, and any of the guys that they could sign to replace him as the swing tackle, even though he was never here, aren't that good. We're kind of in an Eric Kendricks, what's the name? Devondre Campbell situation.
Oh, how about
right?
Gabe Davis? What do you think of Gabe Davis? I mean, there's talk of Gabe, who never ran fast, but
Nope.
he's a big receiver. He can make plays down the field.
Yep.
He's only 26.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, I was talking to Todd Husek about this earlier tonight. I said, now that the draft has come and gone, the free agency's come and gone, what do you think of the 49ers at receiver? And, I mean, for those who don't know, they have Ayuk, but he probably is out till November. They have Pearsall and Jennings. Those are your starters. Mm-hmm. And then you have Cowing and Jordan Watkins and Demarcus Robinson on the bench. Then you got flyers on Tariq Owens, Isaiah Hodgins, Isaiah Nair, Junior Bergen as well.
Russell Gage exists.
Russell Gage, I mean, if you want to go there. What do you think? I mean, are the 49ers... Would you if you add a veteran receiver, does that clog things up, or do you think they need a veteran receiver because you don't like the young guys? If you go bring in a veteran, it's going to make it very hard for Jordan Watkins, Isaiah Nair, and Junior Bergen to make any kind of an impact. But who knows? Maybe they're not going to make a big impact anyway. So, what do you think, Gabe Davis? Are you interested?
I think it's an absolute home run play. And I think it's a necessity for this team at this point because it's pretty hard to imagine. Did Amari Cooper sign anywhere? Did I miss Amari Cooper signing somewhere?
No, he's still available, but Dallas is talking about that.
Yeah, those would be the two guys. This isn't something that just isn't discussed enough, Larry. Demarcus Robinson, who they signed to effectively be the stopgap for Brandon Ayuk, is not going to be able to play the first 3 games of the season in all likelihood because he got a DUI in November of 2024, and the NFL suspends you for like 3 games off of those things now. So, I mean, good luck to all the fine people in Missouri, but like that's maybe why the team's no longer in St. Louis. They would have never made it out of there. They don't have an X-wide receiver for week 1, 2, and 3, as far as I can tell, unless you want to throw Juwan Jennings back at that spot, which I don't think went great. He needs the cushion off the line of scrimmage. And you could put Pearsall there, and that might be fine, but you're really trying to have Pearsall take on the Z role and make it his own. And there's really no alternative to him at the Z as it stands in week 1. You need an X receiver. And you're never going to get a guy like Ayuk. You're never going to get a guy who can be the focal point of your offense. So you know what you should do? You should go get the guy who will give you everything that Brandon Ayuk did when he first took on that role, which is to run clear out routes like a sumbitch. And if there's one thing that 13 Gabe Davis can do, it is run a 7, 8, or a 9 route. Frankly, he can't do anything else. but he will give you the long speed. And 20 yards down the field, he might go left, right, or stay straight, but he will give you the clear out route. And you can do whatever the hell you want underneath of that clear out route. And that is a Kyle Shanahan staple. I'm frankly shocked that it's taken this long for them to come to terms, because it's exactly what he needs. And it's exactly what the 49ers need in their offense. And there's not a lot of teams where that all lines up. Now, what does
Dable and Shane supposedly want him because they had him in Buffalo and they feel like they need him. But
they have a number one receiver already.
They're also, I mean, if they're going to do this, they're going to have to cut Jalen Hyatt, I would say. The Giants will be cutting Jalen Hyatt if they pick up
the Niners should
Davis.
get Jalen Hyatt. But you have Malik Neighbors, who is an elite number one X receiver. So where are you playing Gabe Davis? You don't want Gabe Davis at the Z. You definitely don't want him at flanker. He doesn't do those things. He runs 7, 8, or 9 routes. That is a responsibility that can really only apply to an X receiver, not just in Shanahan's offense, but in any offense. At the line of scrimmage, can give you a little something off of a bump, but he's going downfield and he's taking it off the top. And listen, is he going to be the same player he was? No, he isn't. He's got a bunch of injuries, all this stuff. Can he still run a 7, 8, or a 9 route? I believe it. And I don't understand why the Giants would try to get him in there. I don't love their receiver room, to be fair, but they have an X receiver, and he can only Gabe Davis can only play X, and the Niners need an X receiver. This seems like a pretty good match. I mean, Amari Cooper would be better, but why would Amari Cooper want to come to a spot where when Brandon Ayuk does come back, now you're competing with 3 other guys? But at that point, Pearsall will kind of know one way or another, but they're buying in. Jennings isn't going anywhere as your third receiver, third and 1. But Cowing, Watkins could be fine. I don't know. Cowing's a nothing. He won't. I think they're cutting him at the end of camp. Bergen's going to hang around, but he's not a receiver. He's technically a receiver. I mean, you're really kind of relying on Trent Taylor at this point when we're talking about this receiver.
That's pretty scary. That's scary.
Right.
Let me ask you this, because the draft sometimes creates problems for organizations, and I think we're starting to see that in Green Bay right now. Green Bay drafted Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, and they drafted those guys because they felt like they needed a true number one receiver, but they had all these other guys.
Yeah.
And now, from what I'm hearing and reading, there's all kinds of disharmony going on in Green Bay. Jaden Reed went to the head coach and was like, hey, man, I thought I was the number one receiver, and now I'm not. Yeah. And now you got Golden there. They say Dobbs is unhappy. They brought in Savion Williams. Christian Watson is coming off the knee injury. They also have Dontavion Wicks. They signed McCole Hardman.
That's right.
They also have Bo Melton.
Love Bo Melton.
Can't
get enough of Bo Melton. Go get Bo Melton.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If I'm the 49ers, I mean, I think I would be calling Green Bay, because from what I'm reading, they wanted Golden because they want that number one receiver, but they don't know who the number one receiver is, and it's probably going to be Jaden Reed. And it's how many, Green Bay, it sounds like, may have one too many receivers.
That sounds like a wonderful problem to have, and it's not a problem that they're going to relieve themselves with by sending one of them to San Francisco.
Well, but they may cut somebody. I mean, I have a feeling they may cut somebody. I mean, they could cut a Bo Melton. They could cut a McCole Hardman.
But here's the
if I'm the 49ers, I'm literally watching that scenario unfold from afar, because I don't think
one of these guys can get traded, though.
Yeah, you could, but I mean, I'm not even in the camp that they absolutely would not trade with the 49ers. I mean, we've seen teams do trades before. Heck, the Niners traded Charles Haley to the Cowboys.
And we definitely still don't bring it up today,
Yeah. But I mean, the Niners definitely need another receiver. There's probably a handful of teams around football, but that Green Bay is one of them, because they already were deep, and then they just added 3 receivers that they expect to make the team. So we'll see.
Well, I'm with you. Again, if it was any other team, I'd say that there's a more viable option. And it's great, though. It's not as if, the Packers are going to need better defenders or better offensive linemen or a good backup for Josh Jacobs. No, that's fine. Let's just get 9 wide receivers, none of which can seem to differentiate themselves from the others. It's a great plan.
Let's finish up with the Warriors. They get ousted. They're going home. Golden State. so many people pissed at Kerr, so many people going at Kerr the way they went at Shanahan at the end of the year.
Yeah.
A lot of people going at Joe Lacob today. I saw a lot of Joe Lacob hate.
That's a little more fair.
You know, it's funny. I ran into somebody with the Warriors mid-season, and the guy said to me, he's like, because I just was asking him a question. I just wanted to be like, hey, what do you think? Ask him a competitive question about the year. Why not, right? These guys, these guys are talking about the competitive aspects of the season all season long. And if you assumed otherwise, you'd probably piss them off. So this guy says to me, oh, hey, by the way, right? And I said, what? He goes, that we're done winning. And I said, well, yeah. I mean, I would expect you guys are done winning. But I thought you were done winning before the last title, to be completely honest. So maybe I've got an outside hope. He's like, no, we've won all of our titles that we're going to win here with this group, and we're not going to win any more titles. And he said it so matter-of-factly, and it's like it was. And my reaction was, of course he's right. Yeah. They're not going to win any more titles. Steph's old, Draymond's old. They just brought in old Jimmy Butler. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen? I mean, today there's all this talk about, we will do this, we will do that. I mean, does any of it matter at all? I mean, are they going to be able to do anything to get themselves even in a conference finals conversation, let alone an NBA finals conversation? I would say no. I think the Warriors are done. I love Steve Kerr. I think he's a great guy, but his plan this year, I don't get it. I do not get it. If you had said to me at New Year's Eve, hey, Warriors, what's the key to them, making a run at a title? I would have said, you have to get big time minutes and contributions out of Kuminga and Moody and Podziemski and Trace Jackson Davis. If that all happens and your four young guys are playing significant roles for you, then yeah, you got a shot. Absolutely got a shot. And I don't think Steve even tried to make that happen. I don't even know that he even agrees that with my thought that was important. He didn't coach it like it was important at all. And the way that they
you're asking the man to be a miracle worker there.
Well, I either wanted Jonathan Kuminga, I wanted Steven Dunleavy between October and February, which is a long freaking time, to figure out if they could use Dunleavy or use Kuminga, and if they could use Kuminga, use him. And if they couldn't use him, trade him. But the fact that they got to the end of the year, decided they couldn't use him, and didn't trade him, that's a lose. That is a lose.
I agree with you on that. Do you think that was Steve or Mike's call there?
Well, here's the other one, too. I mean, I've gotten into lots of arguments about this in the last couple of weeks. I don't think it's plausible that Steve would have sat Kuminga without either Steph, Draymond, or Jimmy, or some combination thereof, saying, this is what we want. I don't think he just does things. I mean, people act like, like Steve, is just going to make all these. He's just going to flip the bird to Steph and flip the bird to Draymond and flip the bird. This is the NBA. Not only do you not flip the bird to your star players, you kowtow to your star players. You suck up to your star players. You kiss ass to your star players. You do everything in your power to ingratiate yourself and your owner to your players, and you do it all day, every day, all season long. So this idea that Steve would never, ask Steph and Draymond and Jimmy. Sorry, going with it.
I can't. No one who I've ever had to take seriously has ever made such a suggestion that Steve is operating on an island, because that fundamentally.
I hate to say it. I hate to say it. There is some former KMBR person that I was streaming with the other day who, when I brought up the fact that, Kuminga is most likely not playing because Steph and Draymond and Butler or some combination thereof have expressed something thereof, to that effect. It was crazy talk, and it's like, so wait, a couple weeks ago or a month ago when it came out in a press conference that Steph Curry told Steve Kerr to pull Jonathan Kuminga off the floor 45 seconds after he had put him on the floor to go with Guy Santos. So Steph was going to, he's going to tell him to go with Guy Santos, but he would never, ever, ever say anything. I mean, to me, it's pretty clear. But what do you think?
You are forgetting about the man who has one of these. I don't know if it's this color, by the way. Thanks, Amazon. This is a checkbook.
What is that?
It's a checkbook. I'm not going to open it because I don't want to get doxxed. But I don't know what your audience is like, Lair. I don't dive into those comments. But the most interesting thing that happened in the second round series was when Kuminga, I believe in game 4. No, it was 5. Sorry. First half of game 5. Because they're in Minneapolis. In the first half of game 5, Kuminga's given him the business in the first half, right? He did that a couple times. Did that in 4 as well. Joe Lacob is courtside in Minneapolis. And every time Kuminga gets the ball, Lacob is out of his seat. No one else is standing. Oh, yeah. Cheering. Just going to
He loves Kuminga.
He can't get enough of it because it's listen, Joe Lacob's a very sharp dude, but it's a pretty easy, visceral thing to understand Jonathan Kuminga's game. There's not a lot of nuance to it, baby. That is power, speed, and talent. And Steve can't stand it because while he can appreciate all the things that Jonathan Kuminga can do, what Jonathan Kuminga doesn't really do is play basketball with other people. Like, he made a couple of passes in this series that were nice. I'll give him a lot of credit for it. That looked good. Those were the exceptions to the rule. Most of the time, the ball fucking stops. And it stops with Kuminga because Kuminga's about to do some cool shit. And you know what happens? Kuminga has about a 50% chance of doing some cool shit, which is not an effective field goal percentage you're looking for in this day and age, but it's a highlight reel percentage that's off the charts. And if you're consuming basketball strictly through YouTube or Twitter highlights, Jonathan Kuminga is your new Lord and Savior. But if you actually watch basketball, you realize this is soul crushing. This is the worst thing that can happen. And the Warriors have a lot of issues. Jonathan Kuminga is not even close to the top of the list on them. But it does come down to this. Brandon Pajemski had a series from hell with Steph out. Right?
He sucks, man. He sucks.
Okay.
I can't stand watching Pajemski. You can't finish in the trees. Your three-point shot comes and goes.
Right.
You act like you're an entitled superstar. You don't play a lick of defense.
The guy who led the NBA in charges in back-to-back years?
I don't like him at all, man.
I
that's fine. A charge is great. Shane Battier, great.
Shane Battier was a great championship-winning player. I'm not arguing
he wasn't
that
a great
I don't want
championship-winning player,
attack, but he does take a lot of charges. He has figured out a way to at least be effective on that end of the floor, and I'm going to give him effective and nothing more. My point is merely this. When you watch Pajemski, particularly in Game 5, 4, 3, whichever one you want, you saw Pajemski, he'd get the ball, it'd be a good look, right? Good open look. The ball moved around. Everyone felt pretty good about it. There's 10 seconds left on the shot clock. Good open look for Pajemski. And he'd hold on to it. And you're yelling at your TV screen. You're yelling at the game. Shoot the ball. Shoot the ball. Because the first rule of playoff basketball is that a good look is the best look you're going to get. The problem is when you play with Steph Curry, you are trained by Steve Kerr and Draymond Green and everybody else to, if you have a good look, wait a second. Because the defense is going to rotate.
It's early in the clock. I mean, it depends where
we're talking mid. No, we're talking mid clock. We're talking unless it is literally you are holding a grenade, which is the official term. Unless you're holding a grenade, you wait a second because the defense will rotate. And who's coming around the corner with the defense now unaccounted for? Steph Curry. If you play with Steph Curry, your responsibility, and this you can ask, you hear it a million times. This has been hiding in plain sight, apparently, for many people. When you have a good look, not a great look, not a wide open look, but a good look, enough separation where you could put up the shot. If it came off of ball movement, you wait a second because here comes Steph and he's about to get a great look for Steph Curry, which is going to demoralize the other team, which is going to pump up the crowd, which is going to do everything. And you saw Pajemski forget that Steph wasn't on the floor again and again and again when he was there because they rarely played him without Steph. You know who never waits that extra beat? Jonathan Kuminga. Not once has he ever waited, which is why Steph and Draymond, by the way, Draymond, who's completely useless without Steph, including on the defensive end, they can't fucking stand playing with the guy because
then trade him.
I agree.
We're too far down this road. This is not. These are not good excuses. I hear what you're saying.
I'm just laying it out.
No, and I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying they should have preempted this whole thing. It did a preemptive trade.
But now we're playing the politics game, Lair. And Mike Dunleavy's having to do a lot of roster moving and spending a lot of Joe's money, and they can't guarantee championships. And again, we're done winning over here. I'm sure he's not the only person, or she was the only person in the building who had that opinion. And so you have all of this, and you're just trying to find a way to have plausible deniability for winning. What's the last thing you want to do when you're all walking? I think we can win, but I'm not really sure. What's the last thing you want to do? Let's get rid of the owner's favorite player. Let's make sure that Joe has to pay extra special attention to everything now. Like, that's the issue. And so while logically speaking, and I've heard from, both sides on this thing, logically speaking, they should just sign and trade Kuminga. You get a little something back for him. You might be taking another loss, which they've made a couple of trades here lately in the last couple of years where they've had to take a bit of an L on the conversion rate. So that's another one of those, which is how your roster starts to suck, where you just keep taking L. That's like a retirement plan. You want it to end here. Apparently that's Steph Curry's career. The other thing too is, and do not be shocked if this happened, Larry, the Warriors sign him and don't trade him. And they plan on trading him in 6 months when there will be more teams that can actually go out and do it because, well, someone's going to be looking for Kuminga then. They might prolong this thing another 6 months. They waited 18 months after the Warriors got bounced by the Lakers in the second round, the same way they got bounced this year. After a 7-game series, they go and they play a team and they get bounced in 5 or 6, and it's not even competitive. They waited 18 months after that to go out and make the kind of trade that they needed to make, which wasn't enough because Jimmy Butler fell on his ass in game 2. It might never have been enough because of a variety of reasons. They waited 18 months to make a, borderline chips in play for a second star. No, Lowry Markkanen is too expensive. Paul George would never come. Let's ask about LeBron. Let's ask about KD. Let's just do some stuff that we could tell Joe we're working on it. But let's not ever push our chips to the middle of the table because that would put our asses on the line. They finally make that deal when Miami just says, give us whatever the hell you want. And we're so sick of this dude. And they get him in and they give you hope for a minute because they were playing. You mentioned earlier, like, how do they get back into the conference finals argument? Buddy, if Steph was, this is both the best and the worst thing that could have happened because Steph was given the Timberwolves the business in that quarter and a half, and he would have continued to. That matchup was perfect for Curry. The only way that they could have stopped it was if Rudy Gobert was off the floor full time and Naz Reid developed some sort of a defensive backbone. They had no way of stopping Curry in that series, Minnesota. It might have still gone 7, but they had no way. Which in that case, they're in the conference finals again. Now, do they get run off the court by Oklahoma City and or Denver? Absolutely. But you got the Knicks and the Pacers on the other side of the bracket. Not exactly murderer's row. The Celtics are never going to be the Celtics again. Oklahoma City kind of looks like a fraud. I mean, devastating. Like, this is a wide open NBA, and the Warriors can delude themselves into thinking that they're right in it by doing nothing, which is exactly what they'll do. They will stay status quo and will be right back in the situation next year with a whole new batch of injuries for a whole bunch of old men as it gets into actual nut crunching time come playoffs. I miss Gary too.
Fat Loser says, I know you're reading me. Yeah,
Respect
I was reading.
Fat Loser. That's probably a skinny success story.
Give me a solution for Golden State. Give me a solution. You got something? Is there a solution here? Because they're old.
Yeah.
They can't. I was listening to them talk about it with Bob Myers tonight, and it's like, well, you're gonna run it back next year with old Jimmy, old Steph, old Draymond. I mean, why bother? Why bother? I mean, why? It's like, hey, we couldn't get finished with this year's marathon, But let's run a marathon next year when we're older. I mean,
to be fair, they had to play a lot of hard basketball from February on because they suck so hard for the first 5 months of the season. So being able to space that out a little bit might help.
They look good early, right? They look good out of
They
the
look
chute.
good for like 3 weeks because Buddy Hield was holding them up, and then guess what didn't happen after that?
They look good early. What's going to take? I mean, are they done, or is there hope?
No, they're not done. I mean,
they're not done. I think they are done.
Well, this is the other problem. We have this conception of what expectations are for the Warriors. Like they're going to exist inside a parity-driven NBA. They're never going to be the capital W Warriors again. They're never going to be the favorites again. But they could be in the mix.
Well, not the favorites, but I mean, is there any other way to get? There's nothing they can do to add any significant piece. It sounds like the free agent market's pretty weak. Huh?
Well, fiscally, it's almost impossible. Because of where they stand with
just
the cap.
Overpaying everybody.
I mean, yeah. I think that you could turn Kuminga into something a little more ready-made and a little bit more. In fact, you should think about doing I don't have the names for you right now, but this is what they should do. They should do what the Clippers did, which is take Paul George, and they turned him into 2 players that cost the same as Paul George. What the Warriors should do is they should take one Jonathan Kuminga at $30 million a year who doesn't fit their system and wants to do things his own way because that's the way Kobe did it. And they should turn him into 2 $15 million a year players that actually fit the goddamn system and can do it with Steph.
Keegan Murray and Valanciunas?
Sure. I mean, legitimately, sure. That's the only, I mean, and Isaiah Stewart, perhaps. I mean, there's
That's
options.
Right.
So I would look into that. I think a lot of people are going to be clamoring for size. They did that before. It was called James Wiseman. Didn't really work out. I would stick with the formula.
Yeah,
and then,
I mean,
the idea of like getting rid of
I
Draymond and going out, like everyone can galaxy brain this thing. Giannis ain't coming.
I don't even want to hear about it.
Well,
don't tell me. I don't want to hear about KD either. Jesus Christ!
KD
some of
would
these
be
Warrior
great.
fans
KD
with
could
their
work.
bring back Jordan Poole, bring back
this-
KD, bring back bring
KD
back Wiggs. I don't want to bring back
Oh.
any of those guys.
Well, a lot of people
KD,
have
really?
to hold
You want
on to
KD?
the idea that
You want
Wiggins was a
KD
good player.
battling with 14-year-olds on Twitter, and there was a joylessness to KD. I don't know, man.
That motherfucker cold as hell, though.
Oh, he was awesome. He's a great player, but I don't know if I want him anymore.
Well, here's the thing. You are locked into a 36, a 36, and a 37-year-old at the start of the season. You're locked in. Okay? So is it ideal? Hardly. Would you have liked any of these 2 timeline things that they've tried to fucking work? You bet. But they didn't. So here you are. You have one timeline, and it is old, and it's going to need some insulation. I would go out and get another 35 or 36 or 37-year-old because those guys actually, it's kind of like an old car. They've depreciated in value so significantly. They're actually worth more to you than they are to anybody else. And you can probably get one for a song, which is why Butler was able to come so cheap. I'd play the Butler game again because as we learned, they're
Go
screwed if
older.
Steph. Yeah, get older. Why not? You're already in. What you're gonna diversify this portfolio? You're all the way in, Larry. It's all
well,
in.
just because you have older players doesn't mean that you have to get a guy who can't play who's a younger player. Go get a younger player who knows how to play.
Those people
and
cost money. Like what this
Don't
team
worry,
really
but
needs
that's
is
what you have.
two-way-
What do you think Kuminga is going to cost? Sign and trade. First of all, the biggest move they're going to make this offseason is the sign and trade for Kuminga. So they're gonna. That's how the only way they're getting
gonna
better.
trade
They
it
have no
theoretically?
assets. They only have a second round pick. I mean,
Right.
though I will say this after watching the Chicago pre-draft camp today.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take
You get all
Mark
hot about
Sears.
it.
I'll take Mark Sears right now. I mean, they need more shooting on this team. I mean, that
T.J.
was the one thing when
Brunson?
Steph went out, they couldn't shoot at all. They could not shoot. So I mean, you can't be the Warriors and play the Warriors style and have lack shooting. So a guy like Sears is a freaking amazing shooter.
But
I don't know if you saw his combine performance.
I know
today. It
Sears.
was
I mean,
amazing.
I watch Missouri basketball. I got all the Sears I can handle.
Talking about Bama.
Yeah. So they play in the SEC. their issue is that they have a team that can play with Steph, but not without him, and a team that can't play with Steph, but can play without him. And there the two have met, right? Like the only guy who kind of bridges the gap there is Butler. They also have a team that if Steve Kerr had unlimited timeouts, anytime there would be a made basket, he'd call a timeout so he could put on like 4 new players, right? He would do offense and defense. He might as well have an NFL team in that no one's playing two ways. There are no Travis Hunters on the Warriors roster. There are guys who can help you on defense. There are guys who can help you on offense. They don't have any two-way players anymore. And so the idea, and I heard this, I think it was on NBC last night, like, oh, they need some two-way players. Those guys cost a lot of money. Like, that's everyone needs two-way players. That's what two-way wings are, what the NBA playoffs are about. The Warriors had a grand total of 0 this season. Kuminga's an offense only. Butler was a nothing. Like, they don't have Moody. Oh my God. What the hell's Moody at this point? Like, they had nothing in terms of two-way wings. So go out there and get a two-way wing. Well, those guys cost $30, $40, $50 million a year. Also, the idea that, oh, well, go take Kuminga and go get another young player who's better. Why would the team who is taking on Kuminga get rid of a more actualized younger player for Kuminga? Like,
well, I mean, better subjective, Fair. First of all, Jonathan Kuminga is the best athlete in the league. So it's very likely that there's going to be some team in basketball that will, when faced with the idea of adding him, would trade a more skilled player for a more athletic player, because that's what he represents. He is the top tier athletic player. So if you have a bunch of skill, but man, you don't feel like you're athletic enough, man, yeah, you're going to trade some skill for Jonathan Kuminga.
He's been in the league for 4 years. Anthony Edwards has been in the league for 4 years. I mean, it's not to say that that's apples to apples, though I do think Chris Finch did say, oh, I see a lot of Anthony Edwards and Jonathan Kuminga. Can you please show me some of it? Jesus Christ, because I'll, that seems like a big difference to me. But
well, I see it too. He's got tireless and boundless energy and ability to rise. And I mean, these guys are two of the greatest. I mean, these guys have been playing an athletic game since October. It's freaking almost June, and
Kuminga
yet they're still very
rest.
Explosive.
Kuminga had like 30 days off in the middle of the season.
Granted, but even without that, he's very, very explosive. I mean, that's what I see about. That's what those two guys have. I don't think he can
play basketball. I don't think he's a good basketball player. He doesn't do any of
raw. I mean, he's a run and jump, attack the bucket. Yeah, I mean, this guy is. The expectations for this kid are just ridiculous. I mean, this kid has lived without his parents for many, many years.
I mean, I'm navigating sorry about all that.
Navigating continents and all the things that it took to get here.
That's wonderful. Let's give him $30 million because he's got a heartwarming story.
Well, it's $30 million is just the going rate for
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I wouldn't. And I'm not saying don't pay him his market rate. I'm saying let somebody else take him on and use that market rate on something else that you can actually use. Because
that's fine as long as, I mean, I'll say this. I've been looking at I'm a Warrior fan. I've been looking at every single Bleacher Report trade that's ever been proposed for Jonathan Kuminga, and 99.9% of them are just highway robbery, just total thievery. And it's like, I hope if Golden State gets faced with those decisions, I hope they just keep him, because I mean don't give this guy away for some mediocre nothing. Because he's too athletic.
You're going to be
look
waiting.
Really bad.
You're going to be waiting on him forever.
No doubt. I'm willing to move him. I'm just not willing to give him away. That's what I'm saying. I got no problems moving him, but I need a couple pieces back that I can utilize. And I would have made this move a year ago, or definitely at the deadline. I would not have wasted. Literally, Steph's got 2 opportunities to win a title this year and next year. I would not have wasted this one on, well, we'll see with Kuminga. If I really had a coach that felt like there was a chance he was going to banish him to the bench, if that was even a possibility, that that all trade avenues should have been explored to the fullest extent. But right now, you can see what's going on with the Warriors. It's like Joe loves certain guys. Joe's involved, and so there's all kinds of things that don't make sense because they have a hard time building consensus because Joe's got strong feelings and his kids got strong feelings. And Steve Kerr, who's a great coach but not a very good GM, thinks he's a pretty good GM, and he ain't. And Dunleavy's the GM, and you got all kinds of different – you can kind of see, this tug of war going on behind the scenes with the Warriors. There's so many cooks in the kitchen for Golden State.
And why do you think Bob Myers is hanging out with Kendrick Perkins?
Right. Because he didn't want any part of that. He's like, I've had enough of that.
Over it. I'm cashing out my chips right now.
And Joe's like, hey, we've done well in the draft. Really? Our young players are really, really good. Really? It's like, I heard more of that today. And it's like, I don't like the criticism that I'm reading. Stop reading it, Joe. You're a self-made billionaire. Stop reading Twitter for, dumb shits telling you.
Hey, he's reading the Mercury News where I'm.
All right. Well, stop reading that too.
Hey, don't start. Start reading it.
All right. Last thing on the way out the door. Let's hit the supers and then we'll bolt. We got 6 of them here. JC Mania. The reason the 49ers have the easiest schedule is because last year they faced the most teams coming off a bye and dealt with the most tragedy. Thoughts? Well,
tragedy?
It's really the tragedy means nothing to the schedule. And though it isn't equaling out. I mean, I agree with JC Mania to some degree. I don't know if they have the easiest schedule because they had the hardest schedule, but they have the easiest schedule because they finished last. And they got a last place schedule, and then they were fortunate.
They might have done him a little bit of favors after screwing him over in the structuring last year. Fair play.
Hey, if I'm the Niners, I probably made a call to the league office going, what the hell's going on here? So I wouldn't be crazy. Yeah.
Make you money.
MSQ says thoughts on the Niners having 3 head coaches instead of 1.
I'm sorry, what?
He says thoughts on the Niners having 3 head coaches instead of 1. So what's he saying?
Like some sort of like old Roman triumvirate situation, or
so what? Boyer, Saleh, and Shanahan are the head coaches. I don't know. I don't know what to say to the SGA Sports Talk channel, member for 13 months. Hi, Krug and Dieter. I'm a big fan of both of your YouTube channels. Thank you, Chardal. I'm a big 49er fan, and I can't wait for the start of the 2025 season.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. MSQ, thoughts on...
MSQ. We got to get you a space
Thoughts
bar.
on Green Bay's drafting more wide receivers for Love than Rodgers, LOL.
Yeah, well, Jordan Love needs him more.
I like Jordan Love a lot, but I just think that the Packers have crappy chemistry. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. We'll see what they look like this year, but think they have bad chemistry.
Fraud watch on Jordan Love.
You don't like Jordan Love. MSQ says, is LK saying Kerr is the greatest ass kisser of all time, LOL? No, I don't know. I mean, definitely you have to kiss ass to your players. What I'm saying is it's absolutely likely that Steve Kerr talks to Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler about their wants and desires and
it's
and
not likely. I'm
it.
telling you flat out they do. And that if
other people would, Dieter, I know what you're saying, and I'm with you. I agree with you. I think you're right.
It's not.
But other people have
Larry,
pushed back at me and said, "No way, no, Steph just plays, Draymond just plays." And I'm like, "Well, what about Guy Santos the other day, where he's like, hey, Guy Santos in for Kuminga, and he did it. I mean, and it came out in the presser. So
Larry,
I mean, it's
they
obvious
openly admit to it.
Well, not to mention these guys wanted Avery Bradley, and Myers said, we're going to go with GP2. So I mean, those guys have expressed their opinions about the roster and who plays and who's on the team multiple times in the past.
Doesn't mean that it's guaranteed, but if Kerr is going to say, like, hey, listen, we're frustrated with Kuminga. Also, there's the aspect of leadership and the aspect of mentoring that is inherent to being an older player on the team and having rings on your fingers. Hey, we're going to bring Kuminga along, right? We want him to learn how to do it our way. We want to bring him in. Okay, well, if you're talking to Draymond and Steph and Looney and whomever about that all the time, which I know they are, right, about making sure that the young guys understand what it's like to be a pro, well, then when you're saying, hey, we're going to bench his ass for a while, Like, you're going to have a little bit of a give and take because now you're putting even more on their plate in regards to mentorship and how they should talk to them about that situation. The idea that Steve Kerr is acting unilaterally in that is laughable, and you can tell him I said so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you.
It's fundamentally, it's not laughable.
Well,
it's fundamentally false.
But
false.
it's. I understand the thinking, because if you said, does Patrick Bailey impact the moves that Buster makes? No. Does Brock Purdy impact the moves that John Lynch makes? I would probably say no. I'd probably say no.
But there is
because it's football.
A light
it's football.
Conversation. Yeah,
there might be a light conversation about receivers, right?
Yes.
Hey, you like what tight end you like?
I think he had a little something to do with the Brandon Ayuk contract, if I'm being honest.
You know, and I wouldn't be surprised if they talk to Purdy about certain things, but like it's not going to be like, hey, we're thinking about going corner. We're thinking about going corner in the draft.
Yeah.
Which corner do you like? No.
None of that.
It's not going to be anything like that.
No.
But Steph Curry, Draymond Green, NBA basketball players of their caliber have absolutely a seat at the table. And I think it's absolutely...
There are 450 NBA players. About 350 of them are relevant. If you're making a move for any of those 350, you're going to run it by Steph and Draymond, or at least give them a heads up. Right? Just saying, hey.
Also, and people, and not just because it's basketball and not just because of the money, also because in the NBA you have a traveling squad of 20. In the NFL, you got a traveling squad of 200.
You don't know half the guys on your team.
Right. And in baseball, you got, you're traveling with 75 people probably.
Who the hell knows who's on the goddamn baseball team on any given day?
But in basketball, I mean, it's an intimate gathering. I mean, it's these guys, if the team goes out to dinner, I mean, that's a private one-room kind of a thing. Yeah. Where if the Niners go out to dinner, I mean, they're renting out a banquet hall. I mean,
the Niners don't go out to dinner as a team. They have to use a conference room at the hotel.
Right. Or they go to like Kittle's house.
Room at a Michelin star restaurant. Like,
right.
That's how it goes.
MSQ says, yes, Shanny O's head coach, Shanny's
the offensive head coach.
Offensive head coach, Saul's the defensive head coach.
That's how coordinators work.
Yeah, that's interesting. And we got this little nugget from Pine Needle, makes me laugh. My family and I were at social events. Oh, well, we were at social events. And Larry Bear and the Giants brass do not enjoy Larry Krueger.
No.
Banned socially. LOL.
Wait until... Did you ask them about me? Because I could tell you they don't like me much either. I think that's from the horse's mouth.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what?
You're on KMBR, Dieter.
If they liked me, I'd be surprised, and I wouldn't think as highly of the job that I'm doing if they liked me.
I also don't want them
I wouldn't
to like
me either. If there was somebody who actually knew what the hell they were talking about, who occasionally called me out and embarrassed me and said things that were true about me and made me look bad, I wouldn't like that person either. All right, that's going to do it for us. Dieter, what do you got cooking the rest of the week, man? When are you next on the leader? When are we next going to see you?
I'll do the leader sometime in the next week or so there. I got to take a look at the schedule there. Hutch and I will talk tomorrow in all likelihood. I should probably touch base with him about that. We're in kind of no man's land, aren't we? We're dying out here. We all can't be Larry Krueger spinning gold thread out of a cowherd clip. Some of us have to do the deep research. So I'll figure it out, man, but always appreciate you having me on.
Oh, dude, it's always fun. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to Claw Daddy Arcades for being a proud sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy for sponsoring The Krug Show as well. The links are in the description for all of our sponsors. If you wouldn't mind, hit like and subscribe on this channel. And if you could, go over to Dieter's channel and hit like and subscribe over there. Support both Dieter and Hutch on YouTube. And they've got the draft guide up as well. You can get a hold of their draft guide.
And by the way, the addendum is going to feature my 2026 first big board.
Look at that. You want to get a head start on next year's draft.
That's right.
So
you're a
check
true
that
sicko.
out. Dieter and Hutch on Twitter. Give them a like, give them a subscribe, give it a like and subscribe here. Thanks to all of you. Have a great night. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for.